there's a troubling trend taking place that we all need to know about, whether we're in retirement, we're a couple of years from retirement, or even a decade or more. And the reason we need to know about it is at some point, many of us are going to face the exact same situation that these retirees are facing. And that is in Florida and now in California as well. More and more seniors are choosing to go bare. And what do I mean by go bare? No, it doesn't mean that they're going to the nudist beach in their local community. What it means is that they're choosing to not have homeowners insurance. And think about that, because for most of us, our biggest asset, or, for many of us, half of our net worth or more is tied up in our home. And because homeowners insurance is becoming so expensive in certain states, they're saying we can't afford homeowners insurance anymore. And they don't have a mortgage, so they don't need to have homeowners insurance. There's no bank that's saying, hey, you have a mortgage, you have to have homeowners insurance. So they're saying we're going to self-insure. And, once you've self-insured for 15 or 20 years, you might be ahead of the game. But boy, if something bad were to happen in the first couple years that you say you're going to self-insure, let's say your homeowner's insurance, and these are actual numbers that I've read. It wasn't that long ago that homeowner's insurance was a couple $1,000s in Florida and California. And now it's $7,000 to $10,000 or more. And seniors are saying, I just didn't budget for that. And with the cost of everything else, I have to cut back somewhere. And so they're choosing where to cut back with the homeowner's insurance. Now, you might live in the Midwest. You might live someplace where homeowner's insurance is affordable. And you say, hey, Azul, I'm never going to have to worry about this. And that might be the case, but it's worth thinking about. And the points I'm going to share here, I think, apply to all of us. And the first point is being very careful when you risk something that's super important to you, your financial independence, your home, to save something that maybe is less important. If having homeowners insurance is a thorn in your side, but you can afford it, the reality is you have to ask yourself, could you afford if your house burned down? Could you afford if there was a hurricane and you had a couple $100,000 worth of damage? Could you afford that? And some people can. And this isn't financial advice. I don't know what the right answer is for anybody, but insurance exists for a reason. And unfortunately, it's getting harder and harder for Americans to have insurance. And as natural disasters increase, insurance only works if it's something that's predictable. The insurance companies look and say, okay, if we insure 1,000 homes, if we insure 10,000 homes in this state, in this region, in this county, we can count on one natural disaster or, 2 homes burning down, whatever the numbers are. But the way insurance works is it's the law of large numbers. So if they get a large enough pool, they in the past have been able to predict what those losses are going to be, and then they can tack on top of that a healthy profit for them, and provide insurance. When you think about it, insurance is a great business for the insurance company. Traditionally, in fact, that's what Berkshire Hathaway is. Warren Buffett's company, his first company, it was an insurance company. And the reason Warren Buffett loved the insurance industry is because he had other people's money that they paid in premiums, and he had to invest that money over the long term. And his theory was, if he could get an outsized return on that capital that he was holding in reserve for potential losses in the future, then he could build up a lot of excess capital and a lot of excess profits. And few of us are ever going to be Warren Buffett, but that system worked. Those of us that needed insurance could buy insurance, and the professional money managers, people like Warren Buffett, could invest it wisely, make a reasonable profit off of us, and on top of that, invest the money wisely and have it grow. But what's happening now is things are becoming unpredictable for the insurance companies. And recently, the chairman of the Federal Open Markets Committee, the Federal Reserve, Jerome Powell, came out and said there are pockets in the United States where people will no longer be able to get homeowners insurance in the future. You predict this. And if you can't get homeowners insurance, you probably cannot get mortgages. And so previously I did a video on this showing his quote in his testimonial. I believe it was the Congress, it may have been the Senate, where he said, there is a risk that there's going to be pockets in the United States where people cannot get homeowners insurance. So what do you do? I want to use this video as how do you make a good decision in a situation like this? And again, not financial advice for you, but I can tell you how I personally would think about it. And I personally would not own a home in an area I could not get homeowners insurance. Now, it's easy for me to say that, but what if I already owned a home? And many of you know that I lived in Utah for over a quarter of a century. I recently retired and moved to the Pacific Northwest, but I do have friends that are worried every year whether or not their homeowners insurance is going to be renewed. And if it does get renewed, whether it'll be renewed at a reasonable rate. And so far, all of my friends have been able to get their homeowners insurance. And the reason this is happening in where I live in Utah is there's some neighborhoods that are at risk of wildfires. And my friends' homes are isolated enough that it's impossible to basically protect them in traditional firefighting techniques. So anyways, what do you do if you find yourself in a situation like that? Again, my guiding principle is I don't want to risk something that matters, my financial independence, my financial security, to gain something that for me doesn't matter, right? I can afford my homeowner's insurance. And so even though I've paid off my mortgage, even though I don't have a mortgage, I don't want to risk that. And I think this applies to many things in our life. The nice thing about becoming financially independent is we only have to become financially independent once. And once we're financially independent, job number one, I'll quote Warren Buffett, is to not lose money. And job number two is never forget job number one. I'm paraphrasing here, but that's essentially it. So take no more risk than what you need to achieve your goals. And for many of us, our goals are, to have a comfortable retirement, to be able to do the things that we want to do, and hopefully leave a little bit of money behind for our kids. But beyond that, I do know some folks that would love to build a legacy. And, that can, if you're not careful, fall into the category of risking something that matters for maybe something that doesn't matter. As I record this, if you've made it this far in the video, you deserve to know what this background is behind me. These are small Swedish villages. I'm on a high-speed train from Stockholm to Copenhagen, and we're going through Sweden. We were here for my wife's ancestors. Her great-grandfather and grandmother came from here. But, when you think about legacy, many of us don't really know the story beyond our grandparents. What were your great-grandparents' names? So the idea of having a legacy, if that's important to you, really ask yourself, how important is that in the overall scope of things? And if it's important, great. But if it's not important, as we get older, think about the risk that you're taking in your investment portfolio, the risk that maybe you're taking making decisions like people in Florida have done to say that they're not going to have homeowners insurance. If you enjoyed this video, the YouTube algorithm says this is the next video of mine specifically for you that you should watch next. Thanks for watching this one. Bye-bye.